Hi, my name is Lisa Greenwood, and I'm here to share a story that completely changed my life forever. It's not just a story, it's my testimony, my encounter with something so profound that it challenged everything I thought I knew about life, faith, and God. It all happened on October 12th, 2015, a day that began like any other, but ended with an experience I will never forget. That morning, I woke up feeling off. Nothing major, just a slight headache and a vague sense of unease, but I had a big day ahead and there wasn't time to dwell on how I felt. I was a third-grade teacher at Cedar Valley Elementary School, and we had a special fire safety assembly planned. The kids were excited, and I didn't want to let them down. I grabbed my lesson plans, packed my lunch, and headed out the door. The crisp October air was refreshing, and the leaves crunched under my feet as I walked to my car. It felt like any other day. The drive to school was usually my favorite part of the morning. It gave me a chance to gather my thoughts, pray, or listen to music. But that day, something felt different. My headache was getting worse, and I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something wasn't right. I brushed it off, telling myself I'd feel better once I got to school. As I drove, the roads were slick from an early morning drizzle. The sunlight reflected off the wet pavement, making it harder to see clearly. I was only about 10 minutes from school when it happened. I remember reaching for my water bottle, thinking it might help with the headache. My eyes left the road for just a moment, but that was all it took. When I looked up, I saw the curve ahead too late. My tires lost traction and my car began to skid. Panic set in as I tried to regain control, but the car spun out. Before I knew it, I was heading straight toward a massive oak tree. Everything happened so fast, yet it felt like time slowed down. The last thing I remember was gripping the steering wheel and thinking about my family, my husband, Greg, and our 2 daughters, Ella and Sophie. Then, everything went black. When I opened my eyes again, I wasn't in my car anymore, at least not in the way you might think. I was above it, floating, looking down at the wreckage. I could see my car crumpled against the tree, the hood crushed and the windows shattered. And there I was, slumped over the steering wheel, motionless. I wasn't scared. In fact, I felt strangely calm. It was as if all the pain, all the worry had been lifted away. I felt weightless, free, and surrounded by a warmth that's hard to describe. It wasn't just physical, it was emotional, spiritual, like I was being wrapped in love. I watched as people began to gather around the car. Someone was shouting for help, and another person was on their phone, likely calling 911. I could hear the faint sound of sirens in the distance, but it all felt far away, like I was watching a movie instead of living it. As I hovered there, I began to feel a pull, gentle but insistent. It was coming from above, drawing me away from the scene below. I wasn't afraid. If anything, I felt curious, even excited. The light was warm, inviting, and filled with a sense of peace I had never known. I started to move toward it, and as I did, the world around me began to fade. The sounds of the sirens, the voices of the bystanders, even the sight of my own body, it all melted away. All that remained was the light and the overwhelming sense of love and peace that seemed to emanate from it. As I drew closer to the light, I began to see a figure standing at its center. At first, I couldn't make out who it was, but as I got closer, I realized it was a man. He was glowing, not just with light, but with love, compassion, and kindness. His presence was overwhelming in the best way possible. It was Jesus. I knew it instantly. There was no doubt in my mind. He didn't need to say his name. My soul just recognized him. He looked at me with eyes that held infinite understanding and love, and in that moment, I felt more known, more seen, than I ever had in my entire life. "Lisa," he said, his voice gentle but powerful. "You've been searching for peace, haven't you?" I nodded, tears streaming down my face. "Yes," I whispered. "I've always felt like something was missing." Jesus smiled, his expression full of compassion. "You've been carrying so much, trying to do everything on your own. But you were never meant to carry it alone. Come with me, and I will show you the truth." As Jesus extended his hand toward me, I felt a peace so profound it brought me to my knees. He helped me to my feet, and together, we began to walk toward the light. The space around us was unlike anything I'd ever seen. It wasn't like Earth, but it wasn't entirely otherworldly either. The air shimmered with a golden glow, and the ground beneath our feet seemed alive, soft, vibrant, and warm. Every step brought me closer to a sense of completeness I hadn't realized I was missing. The weight I had carried for years, worry about my family, my job, and all the little things I could never quite get right, seemed to dissolve with each step. Jesus didn't speak right away. He simply walked beside me, his presence alone comforting me more than words ever could. I didn't need to ask where we were going. I just knew that I was safe and that wherever he was leading me, it was where I was meant to be. As we continued, the space around us began to transform. Suddenly, we were standing in a place so beautiful it took my breath away. The colors were more vibrant than anything I had ever seen, as if they were alive. The sky wasn't just blue. It was a cascade of hues that seemed to shift and dance as I looked at it. Rivers of crystal clear water flowed gently, their surfaces shimmering like liquid diamonds. There were people too. Countless people, all glowing with a light of their own. They were laughing, talking, and singing together, their faces radiating joy and peace. I recognized some of them, family members who had passed away, friends I hadn't seen in years. They looked at me with warmth and love, as though they had been waiting for me. "This," Jesus said, gesturing to the scene before us, "is a glimpse of what I have prepared for those who love me. It is a place of perfect peace, where there is no pain, no sorrow, and no separation from God." Tears filled my eyes as I took it all in. "It's beautiful," I whispered. "I've never felt anything like this." "It's because this is what you were created for," Jesus said, "to know God, to be in his presence, and to experience his love fully." As I stood there, marveling at the beauty around me, Jesus gestured, and a glowing screen appeared before us. On it, I saw scenes from my life, moments I had lived but forgotten, played out in vivid detail. It was as if I was watching a movie of my own journey, but this wasn't just a highlight reel, it was a life review. At first, I saw moments of kindness, times when I had helped a student struggling to read, comforted a friend going through a tough time, or supported my husband during his challenges at work. Each act of love, no matter how small, seemed to glow with a light of its own. Then the scenes shifted. I saw moments I wasn't proud of, times when I had been impatient, selfish, or judgmental. I saw arguments with Greg that I could have avoided, hurtful words I had spoken in frustration, and missed opportunities to show love and grace to others. I turned to Jesus, tears streaming down my face. I didn't know how much my actions mattered. He placed a hand on my shoulder, his touch filled with reassurance. "Lisa, no one is perfect. We all fall short, but each moment is an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to reflect God's love. You've done more good than you realize, but there's still so much more for you to do." As the review ended, Jesus turned to me, his expression full of compassion. "Lisa," he said, "do you know why you're here?" I hesitated, unsure of how to respond. I think it's to understand my purpose." Jesus nodded. "Exactly. You were created for a purpose, one that is rooted in love. Love for God, love for others, and love for the world around you. Your job as a teacher isn't just about academics. It's about nurturing young hearts, showing them kindness, and reflecting God's love through your actions." I thought about my students, about how often I had been so focused on lesson plans and deadlines that I had overlooked the chance to truly connect with them. "I could do better," I admitted, my voice trembling. "I want to do better." "You will," Jesus said, his eyes filled with reassurance. "But it starts with letting go of the burdens you've been carrying. Trust in me, Lisa. Let me guide you, and I will show you the way." As the beautiful landscape faded, Jesus' expression grew more solemn. "There is something else you need to see," he said. "It's not enough to know your purpose. You must also understand the consequences of ignoring it." Before I could respond, the surroundings shifted. I was no longer in the warm, glowing light of heaven. Instead, I found myself standing at the edge of a vast, dark chasm. The air was heavy, the ground beneath me cracked and barren. From the depths of the chasm came the sound of anguished cries, voices filled with pain, regret, and despair. "What is this place?" I asked, my voice trembling. "This," Jesus said, his tone heavy with sorrow, "is what happens when people choose to live apart from God. It's not God's desire for anyone, but He has given each person free will. Those who reject His love and choose their own path end up here, separated from Him for eternity." I couldn't look away from the scene in front of me, no matter how much I wanted to. The cries coming from the chasm pierced my heart. They weren't just cries of pain, they were cries of regret, of hopelessness, of people longing for a second chance that would never come. The darkness seemed to stretch endlessly, but within it, I could see faint, flickering shapes, souls reaching out, clawing at the air as if trying to escape. Their faces were distorted, their expressions frozen in anguish. The ground beneath me felt unstable, as though it could give way at any moment. "Why are they here?" I asked, my voice trembling. "What did they do to deserve this?" Jesus' face was filled with sorrow as he answered, "It's not about what they did. It's about what they chose. Each of these souls was given the chance to know God, to accept His love and grace, but they turned away, choosing their own path instead of His." I felt tears streaming down my face as I took it all in. But why would God allow this? If He loves us, why would He let anyone end up here? "Love requires choice," Jesus said gently. "God's love is always available, but He will never force anyone to accept it. Each person must choose for themselves. This place exists not because God desires it, but because some choose to live apart from Him." As the chasm faded from view, I felt a renewed sense of urgency. I turned to Jesus, my heart heavy with what I had just witnessed. "What can I do?" I asked. "How can I help people avoid this?" Jesus looked at me with compassion and love. "You have already been given a mission, Lisa. Your life, your work, your relationships, they are all opportunities to reflect God's love and lead others to Him. It's not about being perfect or doing everything right. It's about living with purpose, showing kindness, and sharing the truth." He paused, his gaze steady. "When you return, you will face challenges. Not everyone will understand your experience, and some may even reject what you have to say. But don't be discouraged. Remember that I am always with you, and I will guide you every step of the way." I nodded, my heart filled with a mixture of fear and determination. "I'll do my best," I said. "I'll share what I've seen." The next thing I knew, I was back in my body. I opened my eyes to the harsh fluorescent lights of the hospital room. Everything felt heavy. My head, my limbs, even my breathing. But I was alive. As my vision cleared, I saw my husband, Greg, sitting beside me, his face etched with worry and relief. When he saw I was awake, tears filled his eyes. "Lisa," he said, his voice trembling, "you're back." "Thank God you're back." I wanted to tell him everything right then and there, but my throat was dry and my mind was still racing. Over the next few days, as I recovered in the hospital, I struggled to process everything I had seen. The beauty of heaven, the despair of hell, and the overwhelming love of Jesus. It was also vivid, so real. I knew my life could never go back to the way it was before. When I finally felt ready to share my story, I started with Greg. We sat at the kitchen table late one night, the house quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. I told him everything, how I had left my body, met Jesus, and seen both heaven and hell. I shared the truth Jesus had revealed to me about life, love, and purpose. At first, Greg listened quietly, his expression hard to read. When I finished, there was a long pause. Then he reached across the table and took my hand. "Lisa," he said, "I don't know if I can fully understand what you went through, but I believe you. And I'll support you, no matter what." His words brought tears to my eyes. Having his support meant everything to me, especially as I began sharing my story more widely. I spoke to friends, family, and even my church community, knowing that not everyone would believe me. Some people were skeptical, others dismissed my experience as a hallucination, but a few listened with open hearts. My near-death experience changed the way I saw everything: my family, my work, even the little moments of everyday life. I realized how much I had taken for granted, how often I had been so focused on getting things done that I missed opportunities to show love and kindness. At school, I began seeing my role as more than just a teacher. Every interaction with my students became an opportunity to reflect God's love, whether it was helping a struggling child, listening to their stories, or simply offering a kind word. I wanted them to know they were loved, not just by me, but by a God who cared deeply for them. Outside of work, I started volunteering at a local food pantry, something I had always thought about but never made time for. I realized that serving others wasn't just a nice thing to do, it was a way to live out my faith and share God's love in a tangible way. If there's one thing my experience taught me, it's that life is a gift. Every moment, every interaction, every choice we make, it all matters. We were created to love, to serve, and to grow in our relationship with God. And while we all fall short at times, His grace is always there waiting for us to reach out and accept it. I don't share my story to scare anyone or to claim that I have all the answers. I share it because I believe it can bring hope, comfort, and clarity to those who are searching. If you're feeling lost, burdened, or unsure of your purpose, I want you to know that you're not alone. God loves you, and He's waiting for you with open arms. If my story has touched your heart, I encourage you to take a moment to reflect. Are there areas in your life where you've been holding back, searching for peace but not knowing where to find it? I invite you to open your heart to Jesus, to seek His love and guidance. Please like this video, share it with someone who might need to hear this message, and subscribe to this channel for more testimonies of hope and transformation. Together, we can share God's light with the world.